We have loans from really 1,000 to 1 million, but our average is more like 50,000. And in addition to providing loans, we also provide business advising and training and support for the businesses that we make loans to. So happy to be part of the workshop here this morning.
Thank you very much, Ceyl. Technology is working great.
Good.
Mario, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today here on the panel. My name is Mario Gonzalez. I'm a business banking area manager with Chase Bank. We provide concierge service to our clients in our community, as well as implementing deposit, credit, and treasury solutions. And I help lead a team here in the Denver metro area. So that's what we're about.
Thank you, Mario. Well, let's get started with some questions. And Monique, I might start with you and ask what activities and products are you primarily seeing from the people you're helping and servicing these days?
So because we have operated, one-on-one with our participants for 40 plus years, this year, not same as usual, our participants really want navigation, what we call navigation, and business consulting. So that one-on-one kind of support. And then the other thing that they are asking for in those consulting sessions is really help with bookkeeping and financial, literacy and understanding financial statements. And a lot of that has been driven by the PPP loans, now the GAP Fund, the Energize Colorado GAP Fund, getting their books ready. Also raising capital, and this year that has come in the form of, I call it venture capital, cash supports for small businesses, also loan funds, and then marketing. So many of our business owners are learning how to take their businesses to online platforms. So doing business in person versus doing business online. So those are the kinds of things that are really being asked to help our businesses to pivot to this environment.
Okay, thank you. Ceyl, I might ask you the same question. What primary services are you seeing your clients and customers requesting?
Well, of course, we are a source of capital. We have been, as I mentioned, we were very involved in the PPP program before it closed. We're hoping that that's going to open up again in some reincarnation, maybe allowing businesses to take a second dip on that. We also currently are doing grants administration. So some of these grant programs that are available through counties and the state, we're participating in helping out with that. And we, are encouraging all our borrowers and businesses to check that out. But there are a lot of businesses that are putting their toe back in the water and wanting to get some capital for additional equipment, finding ways to reposition themselves for this new normal, or actually starting businesses. There are some entrepreneurs who really see opportunity in these times. And I think that's kind of what Denver Startup Week is about here, is entrepreneurs that see that opportunity and space for something new or different, or meeting needs that no one else is meeting. So we are seeing requests for that. On our technical assistance side, they are looking for ways to do that pivot, as Monique mentioned. So we're providing a lot of the same services there with our business advising, and also just how to survive, how to flex, and how to be able to move forward in this environment.
Okay, thank you, Ceyl. Joanna, I might ask on just a little variation of that question. How have you had to pivot over the last 6 months or so in your entity, and what are you seeing from your clientele?
Yeah, so we work in food access, but we work in long-term food access. And so that means that we teach families how to grow their own food. We're kind of, in the saying, we teach them how to fish rather than give them a fish. But this time around, there's so much need that we are giving a fish to folks. We Each week on average, we distribute about 16,000 pounds of food to families in Westwood for emergency food access. And with that has come this incredible sort of kinship and partnership with the businesses along our Morrison Road corridor. A lot of them are restaurants. A lot of them are small, owned by one person, maybe a couple employees, who are also struggling and have found a way to not only help the community, but help their businesses as well. For example, we have a restaurant across the street. We have a couple of businesses on our site that are not only experimenting with online delivery, takeout, but they're also contributing in a very real way to our emergency food access. And so what that's doing is really creating this this sort of very stable community in a place that's otherwise been really rocked to its core by the pandemic.
And where do you source most of your items that you provide?
So the majority of the food, the 16,000 pounds of food, comes from Casa Food Rescue, which is a partner of Food Bank of the Rockies. And so that's what you would consider sort of grocery store spill, things that are, perfectly fine and perfectly consumable, but not able to be put on shelves. And we really do pride ourselves in providing fresh food. The majority of the food that we provide families is actually fresh produce. There are shelf-stable items and things like flour and rice that can go a long way, but the majority of the food that we provide is actually produce and fresh food.
Okay, very good. Mario, I might turn it over to you. You've got a question?
Sure. Why don't we start with you, Monique? If you were to advise a potential business owner on what they need to do first, what would that be?
So some of the, the information that we provide in our training really hasn't changed. So it's really to be clear about what they want to do and create, creating an actual, mission, their vision, their values, a good solid elevator pitch, understanding and researching their target market. That is a little more challenging right now because things are in such flux. So, but some entrepreneurs, find that fun and exciting to try to figure out, as Ceyl said, try to identify new needs and different needs right now. And then the other thing that we really try to work with the startups and the early stage businesses is to really make sure they have a good support system around them, because entrepreneurship is hard. It's really hard. We all know. I mean, the statistics are many businesses fail in those early stages. So making sure that people have, built that support system around them to keep them focused, and that they're even taking care of themselves and their family first.
I'll turn it over to Ceyl and see if there's anything you would want to add. Again, the question is, if you were to advise a potential business owner on what they need to do first, what would that be?
Well, I think really, as I mentioned before, foreseeing what this new normal is shaking out to be for your business, as well as for any opportunities that you might see. I agree with Monique that some entrepreneurs really are good at that, of finding those openings and what's going to be the next version of their idea, or what's something new that they can capitalize on. I think really expanding the sources of funding that you're going to be trying to access, and not just depending on lenders, because debt is debt and you are going to need to pay it back. So maybe businesses or entrepreneurs that haven't looked into crowdsourcing or Kickstarter, those kinds of things, this might be a chance to do that, where people want to have that little coffee shop in their neighborhood, or there's some other way to raise capital, or at least piece together different sources of capital. And I guess that those are probably the main things on the business concept side of, the pandemic is going to create permanent or very long-term changes, and how are you going to adapt your business to that?
Thank you, Ceyl. Joanna, anything that you might want to add on that?
No, I mean, I think to Ceyl's point, it's really acknowledging that you can't build your business now and think that things are going to turn back to the way they were. there's not some switch that's going back to normal. I think just recognizing the permanent changes that are going to be with us and how your business perhaps can adapt when those changes are at its height and then back to normal again, whatever that normal means for this time.
Thank you much. Joe.
Thank you, guys. I might pose this, Monique. Well, let's start with you. In your work and Casa Resource Center's work, what sectors do you seem to be seeing the most interest in, and what are people coming in to talk to you about, and some of the next steps you're giving them?
Sure. So in 2019, thanks to an investment from Chase and others, we launched a mobile food accelerator. And mobile food is actually kind of the bright spot in the food business. So we've had a lot of interest from caterers that we trained last year who do want to go ahead and, you know, get a food cart or a food truck and make their business mobile. So that's you know, that continues to grow. Also, care services for children and adults. Clearly, I mean, that's a difficult right now. These large childcare facilities, that model just doesn't work anymore. So smaller versions of that are really important. We have we helped start a nanny co-op in Westwood years ago, and there's great demand for that one-on-one or small group childcare. Construction continues to be strong, and then the other one is cleaning services. So we've always, because we work with a lot of immigrant and refugee populations, we've always had businesses in the cleaning service that got started. People come here, that's what they can quick, generate income. And of course, a lot of these new cleaning services have made sure that they're getting the most scientific training and getting licensing in the right kind of training, cleaning services, products, etc. And they're able to really market that as a niche or a unique way that they do their business. So I'd say those are the four that are the strongest among the folks that we serve.
Okay, great. Ceyl, given that Colorado Enterprise Fund is so active around the state, what are you seeing most folks coming in requesting support for? What sectors primarily?
Well, we have some similarities to what Monique was just talking about as far as businesses in the so what's difficult right now is anything brick and mortar that is it requires more of a high traffic, like restaurants and retail have limited density for their businesses, but the food trucks are a nice alternative to that. So we are seeing requests for that as well from financing standpoint. So that's a nice way to adapt there, but also transportation, anything with food supply chain of products that are packaged products or delivery to food of different sorts of a farmer's market type thing where there's food and on the wholesale basis, but then also internet and essential services that are not face-to-face contact. So auto service, electrical, things like that really don't require a lot of face-to-face interaction of customers and your business and walk-in traffic and that kind of thing. Construction and home improvement are very big. So anything related to that can really be a good business option.
Thank you. Joanna, I might pose a similar question to you in terms of the work you're doing in Westwood and food security. You must be involved with lots of small businesses who help and create that network. What have you been seeing, and what are many of your participants involved in now?
So similar to Casa Resource Center, we also receive support from JPMorgan to build up this entrepreneurial spirit. So we know that our community in Westwood are hustlers. We call it a plate economy or a side hustle, where you're selling food on the side to make a little bit of extra cash. And we wanted to harness that energy and really turn it into a business or a means of sort of maybe not fully, it's not going to fully support your family, but it's going to go a long way in helping the family. And so when we originally thought of these entrepreneurial tracks, we thought of two tracks. We thought of mobile food business and packaged goods, originally to go into the Westwood Food Co-op, which is a cooperative community-owned market. But now what we're seeing is that knowledge has really turned into a survival mechanism for a lot of our small businesses in Westwood. So for example, one of our resident chefs, Chef Edwin Sandoval of Catrucho Concepts, he is, he's really known for very high-end events, very concept-driven events. However, he makes this amazing sauce called sofrito, which is a season base for a lot of food. So now he's been selling that at our Friday markets, our Sunday markets as a side dish. So people are buying that to take home to cook with it. And we've seen that with a lot of our concepts on site, is that so much of what they're doing, they've been able to adapt and create meal kits or, dry hot chocolate mixes that, rather than coming into the store for the hot chocolate from Cultura Craft Chocolate, they're going home with bags of chocolate to make on their own. And so it's been really amazing to see the spirit that we always knew was in Westwood. The reason that we wanted to do this is really coming to life because everyone has been so adaptable and so resilient and so creative with how they're changing their model. And I just want to point out that a lot of our community members are not people with sort of quote unquote formal education, but what they do have is this spirit of entrepreneurialism, whether they know it or not. And that's been an incredible thing to watch.
Incredible for sure. Mario, maybe you got another question there?
Thanks, Joe. I'll start with Ceyl on this one. If there's a sector or perhaps parts of a sector that you might want to advise folks to stay away from at this point, we heard a lot about adaptation and pivoting and transitioning into the business. What would you share with your clients, Ceyl, to stay away from at this point?
Yeah, I think that as we have been saying, the bricks and mortar, the high interactive, needing density and walk-in traffic is very difficult right now. And so I think that those type of businesses are difficult to see how they can work very well during these times. I think that those are the main things, is really looking at what kind of, it's like, how are you going to get your customers? Are there other ways that don't require that personal interaction and in-person traffic? So if it's a business that doesn't, then really it does go to your marketing plan of how you're going to reach your customers. And there's lots of strategies and tactics that you can use nowadays. People are much more adept and able to use virtual outreach. We're learning from our kids who are doing online learning, and it's becoming much more common. So I think being able to capitalize on that as much as possible with the type of business is good. But also, as was saying, people are staying home more. How does that affect the type of product and service that you're going to be offering in your business?
Ceyl, Monique, I would pose the same question to you.
I think it's the same thing. Things that require a lot of capital up front. I think, Joanna really points out the folks that we work with are super resourceful, and we tell them, hey, look at what you can start with, very small, and grow. And so, going, even though right now you might find a lease somewhere in your neighborhood that that looks like a good deal, as Ceyl said, you're going to invest so much more in marketing than you normally would. So that's really the caution that we're sharing with our participants right now.
Okay, and Joanne, anything you would like to add?
No, I think they both said it fantastic. And we're just so used to starting small with such limited resources that I think we're in a good spot. And it's just really making sure that we continue to drive that message home for folks.
Thank you. Joe?
Monique, I might ask you, maybe you can touch on some common mistakes, perhaps, or
Sure.
errors in process that some new business owners might try and avoid to get their business started.
Yeah. So, not keeping good accounting, that's kind of a solid foundational, bit of advice. Keeping business and personal separate. I mean, that's advice that we share all the time from the very start. Not having a business plan. So, and never doubt alone. So I go back to that, that building that network around you. Trying to do it totally on your own. I know that there's the myth of the startup and the solopreneur, but really there are so many community resources that we have in our community. And so, we just encourage, hey, even if you think you can do this on your own, just at least get a couple of consultations under your belt before you go, whole hog and out there on your own. So I guess it's, building that network around you, taking advantage of the resources that are available, and really paying attention to financial fundamentals.
Doesn't Casa Resource Center have classes on bookkeeping, accounting, and things that they can come to you for education on?
We do. And people are really taking advantage, even in this time of having to do it virtually. So on September 28th, we have a bookkeeping class actually that we're doing virtually with some partners. And we already have almost 100 people signed up for it, which now in a virtual environment, 20% will probably drop off, but we can also record it now and it can be available later. So people are taking advantage of those kinds of resources. And sometimes it's easier. Transportation was a barrier before for our participants. Finding parking in the Westwood neighborhood, in the commercial part is a challenge. So we actually have gotten rid of some barriers. True, there are other barriers, but some barriers have gone away.
So are you seeing just basically on the education front, more interest and more participants than you were previously?
That's been, I would say it's been inconsistent this year. I mean, we had to shut down our programming for about a full quarter so that we could pivot to becoming a fully virtual organization, get our learning management system up and running. You can't just plop what we did before, onto a Zoom call. You've got to really do it in a way that keeps people engaged. And also it's just a different way to learn. So that all took some time. We're kind of rebuilding that back up, but we do continue to see pretty strong demand on the business side. That hasn't happened in previous recessions. In previous recessions, that our business programs would go down quite a bit. It's pretty much maintained and starting to tick up again. And I think there's been more of an emphasis in this crisis around supporting small businesses, actually.
That's great. Thank you, Monique. Ceyl, I might ask you at the Colorado Enterprise Fund, not to get into your underwriting guidelines or anything of that nature, but where do you see areas that you're really not able to help in?
Well, this builds a little bit on what Monique was just talking about, of having that foundation of understanding the numbers. And we're looking for businesses that really get it, that it's hard to predict and you need to have that cash cushion. So that's obviously restricting our ability to provide funding when we see that there's a shortfall, or that it's an unrealistic view of what's needed, because our folks are saying, our loan officers and our business advisors are really saying that reserves of cash should be about double what you previously thought you might need, because being short and getting kind of over optimistic and overestimating one's ability to turn around a wounded business is very, very dangerous, and you really need to be cautious. So I think understanding the numbers, as Monique was saying, and being conservative with projections, having an, underestimating on the front end and being surprised, hopefully by good results, but being prepared financially and with your understanding of your business.
Great, thank you. Joanna, when you look at, say, the next 6 months after, the obvious success you've had there in Westwood, what are you looking at for revision for the next 6 to 12 months as primary strategic goals?
Yeah, so this has really shown us how the food system really works together. We've always really been experts in one piece of the food system, and we've known that there needs to be emergency food access. There needs to be other pieces to this puzzle. And so for us, it's really about taking what we've learned from our business owners, from our community members, and creating a food ecosystem on our site that works for our community. I think one of the things that we've always struggled with is that there are so many sort of obstacles to food access, and we've always tried to work within a system. And I think one of the silver linings that we're seeing is that people are questioning systems right now. They're questioning, why is it so hard for a small corner store to get fresh fruit at an affordable price? And so I really want to see us being the leaders in that questioning and rebuilding of a food system that works on a very hyper local level. And I want to be able to create a model that's going to work for other communities similar to ours.
Mario, did you have another question?
I do. And I'll start with Monique. In your everyday work, what are some of the attributes you see in diverse and inclusive businesses?
So I think something that I've always seen, and that is perseverance. So that's just, people who start businesses, whether they are immigrants who come here or people who've been here and, tech startups, perseverance, because as I said before, entrepreneurship is hard. It's hard work. Resolve, and especially in light of, this particular crisis that we're all learning to adapt through. That's really important. Also, giving people grace for what's going on in the world right now. I think that is sort of an added issue, and having that grace and empathy for your customers, I think, is a really important thing that has to come through when you're building a new business. And I would say one of the things that we talk to our business owners about, even more so today, is when you develop that elevator speech, it certainly has to be about your business, but people are so hungry for connection these days that we tell them, hey, talk about yourself more now. Talk about your own story. People want to hear that. They want to hear about human stories, to have more of a connection to someone that they might want to, a business they might want to buy from or invest in through, say, what, Ceyl was talking about, say, crowdsourcing.
Thank you, Monique. Joanna, I would pose the same question. In your everyday work, what are some of the attributes you see in diverse and inclusive businesses?
Yeah, I mean, I think truly diverse and inclusive businesses start in the community that they serve. We're not looking for outside talent. We're not looking for folks from the outside to come dictate sort of what our culture is. We are looking at the people as the true assets in the community, and looking to provide the resources to really build that up. We're not the outside resources, yes, for capital, for professionals with finance and bookkeeping, and all of those things are incredibly important, but we're not looking for someone on the outside to tell us how to express our culture or how to cook or whatever. We know that our community members are the experts, and we just want to be able to build on that expertise and polish it a little bit so that they're not finding a bookkeeping nightmare their first year. And yeah, really building that is really the key for us.
Thank you, Joanne. And Ceyl, I'll anything you can add to it, but especially with the folks that your team gets to help every day. What are some of those attributes that you see every day on a diverse and inclusive businesses?
Yeah, one of the things that I would add, in addition to what's been said by Monique and Joanna, that we really feel heartened by is when, and we see it a lot in diverse and inclusive businesses, of those businesses really wanting to make a positive difference in their community and with their own, within their own workforce or partnerships that they have. And whether it's, trying to help children or other minority citizens that need a hand up, or people who have criminal histories getting back on the road of recovery in society. We really appreciate seeing business owners who see their business as a way of helping their community in whatever way that might be. And so it kind of aligns with what's been said in a different way, but we see that a lot. And sometimes they start nonprofits, sometimes they just have a giving program, or their business model might be completely oriented to helping refugees or other members of the community that need a hand up. So we see that a lot, and it's really something that in these times is very rewarding to see. And it really goes to the heart of a business owner keeping to their values, not just being about paying the bills, but having higher goals for their business.
Thank you, Ceyl. Joanna, I might ask you, as you look out over the next 6 to 12 months, and given your mission and the passions that you have with Revision, how do people get involved, or how would a small business best get involved with your organization?
I think, we are focused on food for the time being, just because that is our area of expertise, and we have wonderful folks in the community working on other aspects. And so I would say, we do a variety of events. For the next few weeks, we're going to be doing farmers markets on our site, very safe, very socially distant outdoor farmers markets. That's a great way. We are not charging sort of a booth fee. We're charging a small percentage of sales so that it's not prohibitively expensive for smaller businesses to join. So that's a great way to get involved. Another way to be involved would be sort of volunteering on site. It's just a really great way, one, to just understand the community that you're working in before you try to sell to that community or whatever. And so we do like to have folks involved with the community in a genuine way before there's sort of that outside business presence as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Monique, I might ask you at Casa Resource Center, given the wide spectrum of services that you offer, what do you see the most success at when people come in? Are they there working with your folks on a regular basis, or how does that look?
I think the business consulting is probably the kind of the foundation. So getting to meet with a business consultant to help, it's almost like a career coach, but for businesses, to help people refine their plan, their story, their mission, and then for that business consultant to figure out, among that array of things that we offer, like where to plug that person in right now, what stage are they in, where they can get plugged in, to the right place to move forward. Because we meet people where they are. And so they come to us with varying, past experience. Maybe we have a graduation coming up, and I heard that there's 3 little construction businesses that have been operating for a while, but because construction's been so hot in this market for so many years that they just got started and ran with it, and they never did a business plan. So they're coming back. There's a little pause, not quite as busy. They're coming back to actually write their business plan. So I think it's meeting with that, consultant one-on-one, and it can be done socially distant, in person, or virtually, and figuring out where they are and what they need for their next step.
Okay, thank you. Ceyl, could you talk to us a little bit about how people mostly come to you, and what kind of activities and interactions the first few times somebody's contacted the enterprise fund?
You broke out just a little bit there for me, but I think what I heard you say is just what kind of interactions do we have with them, and what services are we providing? You know, we see the businesses when they are looking for capital, and we really work with them to understand what their request is, if it makes sense. Especially now, we're doing a lot more of hands-on underwriting and interaction. I guess pretty much we're mostly virtual right now, working with businesses and bankers as well, understanding the referrals that they're giving us. We do feel like businesses are very reluctant to take on debt right now, and they're being smart about not getting into financial arrangements or situations where they're going to not be able to make the commitments that they signed up for. And we don't want to put them in that position either. So our loan volume is lower than it had been before the pandemic, but we also are expecting that once things stabilize, that there will be a lot of opportunities. And what we've seen in the past is that people who maybe felt that vulnerability for being in a job that they didn't know whether they were going to have it next week or next month, decide to go for it, for that business that they always thought that they could do, and now they see it in a different way. So we are expecting entrepreneurship to continue to be strong. It may have a little bit of a pause here, or a slowdown as people kind of figure out what the landscape is, but Colorado is a place where entrepreneurs figure out a way, and we're expecting to be able to do that. We have about 40% of our loans are to startups and early stage businesses. And if you count, businesses under 2 years, that's an even higher percentage. So we're used to dealing with that, and really want to encourage it on a smart basis.
Thank you, Ceyl. Would you be able to elaborate on some particular successes that you've seen over the last 6 months?
Oh boy, the last 6 months have been so topsy-turvy, and we've had so much volume. I guess, I think seeing some of the restaurants adapt. We do have a lot of restaurants and breweries and distillers. So some of the distillers that pivoted to doing hand sanitizer, that's a success of adaptation. I mean, right now in the last 6 months, it's just how do you adapt to be able to survive and pivot for that. So I think that's an example, going from the bricks and mortar, which are shut down, to really figuring out how to do takeout. And that's been another big thing for restaurants, and reaching the markets of, the neighborhoods on takeouts and food trucks has been another big thing as well. So those are some of the stories.
Make sure we have this panel in the afternoon next year, so we can enjoy some distilled beverages and brewery products. But
Yeah.
Monique, I might pose the same question to you in terms of some successes that you're particularly proud of here.
Yeah. I'd like to share one particular story. A woman named Angela Ray, she's an African-American business owner, and she left corporate America about 5 years ago. She came to Casa Resource Center to our basic business class in 2016. And then she came back in 2019 to La Receta, which is our mobile food business. And her family just had many generations of, culinary expertise, and her brothers work in the food distribution business. And she was a very successful caterer. I mean, her business had just taken off at the beginning of this year. And March hit, and she lost everything, all of her business. But she'd had this idea in her head for a number of years, because her mother had actually been a baker and sold pies to Kansas City restaurants. And that little business helped support her family. Her mom was able to put 4 kids through college. she had these incredible recipes for sweet and savory pies, pie kits actually. And she just had been so busy getting the catering off the ground that she kind of put that on the shelf. So this year she was able to take that pie kit idea and actually even the dough to sell that separately. And she's now working on getting her wholesale license from the state of Colorado. She's found a commissary space to do the baking at Mile High Foods. And her pie kit idea has taken off. It's become a service. So like we had a couple of people in our network who had a death in their family. And instead of sending flowers, we actually sent some of Angela's pie kits that people could, have a meal to quickly put in the oven, during a difficult time. And so Angela has, really made that kind of pivot, and she's ready now to hire her first employees the very first time. So we're super excited for Angela. And we're going to be featuring her on a panel on October 7th with about 4 food entrepreneurs who've kind of done that sort of pivot to give hope and to give advice to other food-based businesses.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Joanna, Revision is so involved and dependent on the community and individuals and small businesses helping you with your mission. What are some of the things that you've seen that have made you particularly excited over the last 6 months or so?
Yeah, it is definitely about the resilience and creativity of our community and what folks are doing. But also, what's really touching is the fact that I always say the people that have the least have the most to give. And we have seen all of these businesses who don't know if they're going to have their doors open tomorrow, come and help with our food distribution or donate whatever food they had left to create meal kits to give away to people who are suffering. And so for me, it's really that collective nature that we've been able to harness. And one of our entrepreneurs, Damaris Ronkanen from Cultura Craft Chocolate, actually started something called the Rise Westwood Collective after seeing how everyone was sort of struggling to get their products online, to market each other, to do all of that. But she saw everyone coming together to help. She started an online platform for all of these folks to sell their pieces, to sell their food, to sell everything. And this month, we're actually launching our first sort of physical in-person events with events on Fridays called Sunset Fridays, which are very casual sort of dinner and dessert gatherings, to Las Noches de Frida, which are dinners on Saturday evenings that are plated. They're ticketed. They're a little higher end, but still very down to earth. And so this idea of the fact that, we've always said we're in community, but to see it in action and to see just how much everyone is giving to each other at this time, and to see it then come back to them tenfold. That has been the most amazing thing to watch over the last 6 months for me.
Great, that's exciting to hear. Ceyl, I might ask you, in relation to your ability to give startup loans, do those referrals typically come from other CDFIs, or maybe a particular entity could not make a debt transaction to that business? And what does that look like for you?
Well, our situation is changing, like everything. We typically have gotten most of our referrals from banks. As you know, the banking environment has changed quite a bit as well. So we still have that. We're starting to do more outreach to our banker referral partners. But we work a lot with organizations like Casa and Revision, as well as the small business development centers. I think we're seeing a little more through that nowadays because people are reaching out to try to be more thoughtful and plan their business before they look for financing. One of the nice things about if there is a silver lining to this upheaval right now is that CDFIs have gotten a lot of good press, if you will, kind of being able to come in and work on a very grassroots basis with businesses. So we're happy about that we can be there to help. So, just whatever sources of visibility we can have. Again, people are getting much more adept at virtual environment and outreach. So we're trying to be as active as we can in that way as well.
Great, thank you. Monique, what have you seen in terms of community and corporate funding and the interest in the ability really into continuing to get community type funding?
Yeah. Philanthropy at the beginning of the year was great about letting us know that we could convert, program dollars to general operating, make it more flexible. They moved up their timelines to be able to provide funding earlier in the year. I will say it's gotten to be a more challenging fundraising environment the second half of the year. We really sit in the recovery space. And I think a lot of funders are concerned about things like food access, which is so important, housing, all those basics. And so I think they're holding back a little bit, because they want to be able to help with those things. And so we thought we'd see a little bit more recovery funding by this point. It's actually literally in the last couple of weeks, it's kind of starting to open up a little bit where I think the funding community has realized, hey, we're going to be in this for the long haul. We may have to fund basic needs and recovery at the same time. So, that's just kind of how the cycle has been going.
Joanna, would you like to talk a little bit about your impressions on funding and the environment here going forward?
Yeah, I mean, really similar thoughts to Monique is the first part of the pandemic was, we could not have been more grateful for the conversion of programmatic dollars to general operating just to get done what we needed to do. I do agree also that the recovery bit is lagging a little bit, and it's hard for us as an organization because we're trying to figure out how much of this is going to sort of change our DNA permanently and how much we're going to pivot into this emergency food access. And we don't want to be at a point where we're chasing dollars, but we do want to be at a point where we're very consciously serving the community's needs. And so we are trying to figure out who we are when we grow up after the pandemic. And that's going to really determine the dollars that we go after and what we advocate funders for.
Well, thank you. Well, we're approaching our time limit here, and I did want to say on behalf of Denver Startup Week and Chase Bank how proud we were to be involved. I want to thank Monique Lovato of Casa Resource Center, Joanna Cintron of Revision, and of course, Ceyl Prinster of the Colorado Enterprise Fund. We appreciate your time. We appreciate what you're doing for the community, and we look forward to future opportunities to work together. But thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
And just as we close, I want to say a big thank you to JPMorgan Chase for their support of Denver Startup Week, longstanding support and incredible support of this community as a whole. You are great champions of all things entrepreneurial, and we're grateful to have you as part of our community. And with that, we'll play a Chase video to close us out. Thanks so much for joining us.
Our relationship with Chase has been key in a ton of different areas. For starters, they helped us secure a line of credit that I never thought we would be able to secure. And they've also given me access to a large network of other female entrepreneurs in the area and have enabled me to learn so much about the financial services industry, which is definitely an area that I wasn't very good at before. The biggest challenge that I faced as a female entrepreneur was the fear of looking silly or like I didn't know something, and I was always afraid to ask until I gained a little bit more confidence and I found a bank like Chase who I was able to ask any question. I never felt ashamed to ask what I was asking, and they have provided me with the tools to understand what it is that I needed as a business owner.